The Emerald Vale was not merely a forest. It was a living, breathing cathedral of green. Sunlight didn't just shine here, it struggled, filtering through 3 layers of canopy until it reached the forest floor as a dim, bruised violet haze. Giant banyan roots, thick as ancient dragons, twisted across the earth, slick with moss that glowed a faint phosphorescent blue when the moon reached its zenith. At the heart of this humid wilderness stood the obsidian spire, a jagged volcanic rock formation that pierced the canopy like a broken tooth. This was the ancestral seat of the king cobras. Vane, the patriarch, was a creature of terrifying beauty. His scales were the color of midnight oil, each one edged in a sharp metallic gold. When he flared his hood, it spanned nearly 2 feet across, revealing 2 eye markings that looked like burning embers. He was a mountain of muscle and lethal intent, a king who ruled by the simple law of the fang. Beside him stood his offspring, but Sola was the anomaly. While her brothers were thick-bodied and aggressive, Sola was slender, her scales a shimmering iridescent teal that changed from green to blue depending on the light. Her eyes were not the flat, cold yellow of a killer. They were a deep, contemplative amber, always darting, always observing. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and the metallic tang of fear. It was the day of ascension. The young cobras were gathered in the Pit of Proof, a natural stone arena at the base of the spire. A tethered forest hog, frantic and squealing, was the target. One by one, Sola's brothers struck. Korth, the eldest, moved like a whip cracking. His fangs sank deep into the hog's flank. Within 60 seconds, the animal's legs buckled, its nervous system shut down by the sheer volume of his neurotoxins. The elders hissed in approval. Then it was Sola's turn. She felt the weight of 100 golden-eyed gazes. She coiled her body, feeling the tension in her spine, trying to summon the killer's heat her father always spoke of. She lunged. Her movement was graceful, more of a dance than a strike, and her fangs found their mark on the hog's shoulder. She waited. The hog stopped squealing. It looked down at its shoulder, then looked at Sola. It blinked. 5 seconds passed. 10. 30. The hog let out a bored grunt and began rooting in the dirt for fallen nuts. A silence heavier than the jungle humidity fell over the pit. Again, Vane commanded, his voice a low, vibrating growl that shook the leaves of the nearby ferns. Sola struck again, and then a third time. She emptied her venom sacs, pouring every drop of her essence into the beast. The hog merely scratched the bite site with a hind hoof, as if it were nothing more than an annoying gnat. "Enough," Vane hissed, slithering down from his perch. He loomed over Sola, his massive hood casting a shadow that swallowed her whole. "The blood of the spire is fire and death. Your blood is nothing but water. You are a Dry-Fang. A cobra who cannot kill is a cobra who does not belong." He didn't strike her. That would have been a waste of venom. Instead, he simply turned his back. "Leave the spire before the moon rises. If you are found within the shadow of the rock by dawn, you will be treated as prey." Sola didn't plead. She didn't cry out. She gathered her slender coils and slithered into the dark, tangled roots of the undergrowth, the mocking hisses of her kin echoing in her ears like the peeling of dead skin. Exile felt like a slow suffocation until Sola reached the deep hollow. It was a cathedral of wood and shadow, located beneath the roots of a banyan tree so ancient that it had begun to swallow the surrounding stones. Here the air was cooler, smelling of ozone and wet bark, and the constant judgmental hiss of the obsidian spire was replaced by the rhythmic drumming of rain on the canopy far above. Sola didn't spend her days mourning. She was too busy looking. Her teal scales were a perfect camouflage among the shadows of the roots, where she built a life out of curiosity. She turned a hollowed-out log into a shelf for specimens, strange, translucent fungi that hummed when touched, and different varieties of river silt. But her obsession was the emerald orchid. These flowers didn't grow on the ground. They hung like dripping jewels from the highest roots, their petals a vibrant, pulsing neon green. They only bloomed when the moon was at its fullest, exhaling a mist that made the insects of the hollow move with a strange, jittery grace. One evening, while Sola was nursing a small, injured sugar glider named Kyle, whose wing had been clipped by a hawk, she attempted to soothe his pain. She had been experimenting with the orchid's nectar, knowing it had numbing properties. "Hold still, little one," she hissed softly. her voice like wind through dry grass. She had harvested a drop of nectar into a discarded turtle shell, but as she moved to apply it, a single drop of her own weak venom, agitated by the effort of the climb, fell from her fang into the shell. The reaction was instantaneous. The nectar, usually a dull green, flashed a brilliant electric lime. It began to hiss, a tiny cloud of vapor rising from the shell. Sola froze. This wasn't the reaction of a poison, it was an activation. She watched, mesmerized, as the liquid stabilized into a shimmering, viscous serum. Kale, desperate and in pain, leaned forward and lapped a tiny amount of the mixture before Sola could stop him. The effect was terrifying. Kale's eyes, usually wide and dark, dilated until they were gold rings. His tiny heart hammered against his ribs, not with fear but with an explosion of energy. He didn't just fly, he launched. He moved with a speed Sola had never seen in a glider, navigating the pitch-black maze of the banyan roots with the precision of a hawk in high noon. "Kale!" Sola called out. The glider landed near her head, vibrating. "I can see the wind, Sola," his voice frantic with wonder. "I can hear the sap moving inside the bark. I can see everything." Sola spent the next few months refining the formula. She realized that her venom, which lacked the heavy proteins required to shut down a nervous system, possessed a unique bridge protein. When combined with the orchid, it didn't kill the brain. It overclocked it. She called it the night hiss. Word spread through the undergrowth. To the cobras of the spire, the weak were food or footstools. To Sola, they were a network. A one-eyed lemur came to her, fearing he would be caught by a leopard. Sola gave him a vial of the serum. The next day he reported that he had predicted the leopard's lunge before the cat had even tensed its muscles. A colony of weaver ants used a diluted version to coordinate a defense against a raiding party of wasps, using tactical maneuvers that should have been impossible for their species. Sola was no longer a Dry-Fang. She was the Alchemist. She lived in a world of vibrant color and heightened sound, surrounded by a secret army of the insignificant. She felt a strange, quiet peace. She had proven her father wrong, not by becoming a better killer, but by becoming something the spire couldn't even imagine, a protector. But the peace of the deep hollow was about to shatter. It started with the birds. They stopped singing. Then came the smell, not the clean scent of the jungle, but a cloying, sweet rot that seemed to drift down from the heights of the obsidian spire. Sola watched from the entrance of her root home as a massive hornbill fell from the sky, its lungs heaving, its feathers turning a sickly, ashen grey. The grey hiss had arrived, and it was heading straight for the heart of the Cobra Kingdom. The silence at the base of the obsidian spire was more terrifying than any roar. Usually the air here hummed with the collective vibration of hundreds of scales sliding over stone. Now the spire felt like a tomb of cold, porous rock. Sola moved with a new kind of confidence. She wasn't the trembling Dry-Fang who had been cast out. Around her neck, she had fashioned a harness of woven spider silk, carrying several translucent vials of the night hiss. In her heart, she carried a heavier burden, the choice to either heal a history of cruelty or let it rot into the soil. As she ascended the jagged volcanic paths, she saw the carnage. Her brothers, once the terror of the canopy, lay draped over ledges like discarded ribbons of grey felt. Their majestic hoods were shriveled, their golden eyes replaced by a milky fungal film. The grey hiss was a master of irony. It turned the most lethal predators into the most helpless statues. She reached the high chamber. The air here is thick with a sulphurous mist. In the center of the cavern, coiled weakly around the ancestral obsidian throne, was Vane. He was unrecognizable. His midnight scales had turned a dusty charcoal, and the metallic gold trim of his hood had vanished beneath a layer of ashen mold. His breathing was a wet, ragged rattle that echoed off the high stone ceilings. "You—" Vane wheezed, his head barely lifting from the stone. "The worm returns to scavenge." "I haven't come to scavenge, Father," Sola said, her teal scales shimmering like an oasis in the grey gloom. "I've come to offer a trade." Sola uncorked a vial. The electric lime glow of the serum cut through the fog, casting long, vibrant shadows against the cave walls. The scent, sharp, floral and medicinal, seemed to make Vane's nostrils flare with a primal memory of health. "This is the night hiss," Sola explained, her voice steady and resonant. It is made from the venom you called water, and the orchids you called weeds. It is the only thing in this jungle that can kill the fungus without killing the host." Vane lunged, a pathetic slow motion born of desperation. Sola didn't even flinch. She simply moved 2 inches to the left, and he collapsed onto the cold floor, gasping. "I will save you," Sola continued, looking down at the Patriarch. "But the spire as you knew it is dead. If I give you this, you will swear the vow of the root. The Cobras will no longer hunt for sport or status. We will become the Sentinels. We will protect the balance of the Emerald Vale. The weak species you once preyed upon are now my associates. Harm one, and the supply of the serum ends." Vane's eyes flickered. He looked at the glowing vial, then at his daughter. He saw the strategic brilliance he had mistaken for weakness. He saw a Cobra who didn't need to kill to command. "You would let us die for a mouse?" he hissed. "I would let a broken system fall to make room for a better one," Sola replied. "The choice is yours, glory in a grave or life in a new world." Vane bowed his head, his snout touching the dust of the floor, a gesture of total surrender that had never been seen in the history of the Obsidian Spire. Sola administered the serum. Within hours, the ashen mold began to flake away, revealing the midnight scales beneath. As the other Cobras were treated, the night hiss didn't just heal their lungs, it sharpened their minds. For the first time, the warriors of the Spire weren't just thinking about their next meal. They were seeing the jungle as a complex, interconnected web. Sola did not take the throne. She returned to her deep hollow, preferring the damp earth and the company of her intellectual underdogs. But every week, the strongest Cobras of the Spire would slither down to her roots, not to threaten, but to report on the health of the forest and to receive their rations of the Alchemist's gift. Sola had proven that the deadliest strike isn't delivered with fangs, but with the mind. She was the Dry-Fang who had saved the kingdom, and the jungle had never been more alive. This story teaches us that what others perceive as a weakness can actually be a revolutionary strength when paired with wisdom and empathy. Sola's journey proves that true authority isn't found in the power to destroy, but in the vision to heal. Ultimately, your character is defined by your choice, to use your unique gifts for revenge or for progress. A Cobra who couldn't kill, but ended up holding the fate of the entire jungle in her coils. If you loved this tale of strategy and survival, show some love by hitting like and subscribing for more unique stories. Share this video to help us grow, and let me know in the comments, would you have saved the family that cast you out? See you in the next one.